welcome to episode 9 of our podcast. I'm Alex, one half of the Sober Experiment.
And I'm Lisa, the other half of the Sober Experiment. So today I'm really, really excited today because we've got the very lovely Millie Gooch with us, founder of Sober Girl Society. Millie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today because we know how mega busy you are and it's massively appreciated. So hello.
Hello. I'm never too busy for you. Don't be silly. No, thank you for having me.
Well, we are really excited about it, Millie. So, how's your week been first off, I guess? We saw you last Sunday and been up to much since?
Yeah, it's been really good actually. I had some very good news on Monday, which was great. And then, the week's been all right actually. It's been quite busy. I always say, I say it's been busy, but I'm sort of gearing up for dry January. So a lot of the plans are quite busy, but in terms of actually leaving the house, I've not really done a lot. But come January, I don't think I'll be in at all. So yeah, just gearing up for dry January, really.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Oh, so making the most of it.
Yeah, I always say that. Everyone's like, oh, I'm so busy around Christmas. And I'm like, no, when you're all quiet in January, I'm going to be mad busy.
Oh, that's fantastic. Mille, I'm going to kick off it. I follow you on Instagram and I have done from the very, very beginning. You know, you were one of the first sober accounts that I saw. So you've been such a huge inspiration to me, and I know you have to a lot of other sober people. Can you tell us though a little bit about the Millie before sobriety and what were your reasons for stopping drinking?
Yeah, okay. Millie before sobriety was the party animal. She was very wild. And her friends actually had the nickname Generous Millie for her. Because if I was buying drinks, I was buying everyone drinks. And I was constantly buying drinks. So I'd go out to the bar and be like, who wants a Jaeger bomb? And then I'd buy everyone would say no. And I'd still buy 8 Jaeger bombs. I'd be like, you're doing it. I was a drink pusher, which I'm very embarrassed about now, but I was always the person who was like, why aren't you drinking quick enough? Or come on, let's have another one. I was very, very much a stay till the end drinker. So, one time in university, my friends actually had to get the bouncers to escort me out of the club because they wanted to go home and I refused to leave.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that, but
no. She was wild.
It's only because we've done it, Millie.
Yeah, no, I know. And if I could, I don't think we'd be friends now. If I'm honest, she was quite a lot to take. And then she would either end her night crying in the toilet, or saying her friends didn't care about her, or she was very dramatic as well. And then essentially my reasons for giving up was I was kind of like a big binge drinker at university. I took those habits through with me to sort of my early 20s and working in London, and I was kind of started to put myself in dangerous situations. I was working in London and then getting a train home to Kent, and I wouldn't really remember how to got home. I started suffering from blackouts. I'd get really bad beer fear the next day, and really anxiety of what did I do? Who did I speak to? Am I on the man online for being drunk and disorderly? Just all those questions. And then I started to notice it was actually taking a real toll on my mental health generally. So it wasn't kind of just hangovers. So if I had to go out on a Saturday, I would really, really get drunk. And then Sunday, I'd spend all day in bed, doing nothing, wasting my weekend. I'd go to work on Monday and I'd still kind of feel on edge. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, it was kind of the same thing. And then by Thursday, Friday, when I started to feel better, I'd just do it all again and repeat. And then I would do it because I was sort of still feeling rubbish about myself from, the week before. So I got into this real cycle of binge drinking and partying and trying to distract myself. I was very an emotional drinker. I always drank because I wasn't particularly happy. And then obviously we all know that drinking doesn't make you happier. So I was feeling worse the next day. And then when I was 26, so it was February 2018, so coming up to 2 years in Feb, I just woke up I went on a night out, and I reckon I remember about 5% of that night out. I remember being in the club, and that's kind of it. And my friend said loads of things that I did, just silly things the next day. And they were like, oh, you threw Nikki's burrito out the car. And I was like, I don't remember any of this. And just little things that weren't aligning with who I was. And they were like, oh yeah, some girl was wearing a hat in the club and you tried to steal her hat. And I was like, what? Why would I do that? That doesn't. And just so that morning I was like, do you know what, I'm just never going to drink again. And I'd said it so many times that I don't know what it was within me. So that morning, well, when I was hungover, I downloaded Catherine Gray's The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, because I physically couldn't read because I couldn't open my eyes. And I listened to it, and that was a book that kind of just changed everything for me. And I was like, that's it, I'm never drinking again. And something inside me just carried on with it. And I can't really remember now if when I first started it I was like, this is absolutely, I'm like gonna stick to it. But just like as time went on, it just felt like this was the right thing to be doing, and I've just stayed on that path ever since.
Yeah,
it's
similar,
sorry,
isn't it? So, yeah, I was just sort of saying, Lisa, it's very similar. This kind of, for me, I really kind of sympathise with that. It was a light bulb moment for me, and my only regret is that I wasn't as young as you were when I did it, because I opened my eyes at 40 and thought, 41, what am I doing? Like, ridiculous. And obviously having children as well, and this is why it's so useful to have this chat with you, because having children, the impact wasn't just on me and my friends and my husband, it was actually starting to seep into their life as well, and putting risk. And albeit the risks were small, but there was only one way it was going for me. And I know that, Lisa, you're very similar, aren't you, Lisa?
Absolutely. I just think, Mille, I don't know anybody in my social circle that wouldn't relate to everything you've just said. I'm like, that's me, that's me, that's me. But obviously, like Alex says, it wasn't until I was like 39, and I absolutely agree with what Alex says. If I'd have known, and if I could have done it when I was younger, I'm a little bit envious.
But
you know.
I think it's like the time now. It's not necessarily like, I don't know, I think there's a lot more like resources and things around now that are really different. So I don't think it's because I've chosen to do it, like I've just chosen to do it now at this time, that we've all kind of chosen to do it, because I do think there's like a real revolution happening. Like,
definitely.
Had this been 10 years ago when I was 26, I don't know if the same thing would have happened.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just what you said there, I mean, you are a massive part of those resources that you're just talking about there. So Sober Girl Society, it's just huge. I think you're on like 70,000 followers on Instagram.
Oh, not that much to show. 61.
It's not far. It's not far off. I mean, I would say it's one of the biggest platforms for sober socialising and sober women particularly, that's out there. It's massive. I mean, tell us how all that started, and did you ever think that it would be this big and this successful?
Oh, I genuinely never ever thought it would be this big. I'm still a bit like, oh no, it's just me talking about sobriety, but I realise it's sort of like a bigger thing than me. I think, so I sort of, for my first kind of 6 months of sobriety, I kind of like white knuckled it, as they say. And I was in this kind of like pink cloud of like everything was amazing, everything was rosy. And then I basically went on holiday to Canada with my friends, and I had like the best week of my life. And I was just like, oh my God, sobriety is amazing. It's so good. Like, this is the best thing I've ever done. And I came home and I had this like almighty like crash all of a sudden, which a lot of people say is this like pink cloud dispersing, where you suddenly realise, okay, this is my life now. And I had what I think now is kind of a mental breakdown, and I talk about it quite openly. I was very, very lucky. So I started suffering with this thing called like disassociation, and like I kind of felt like I wasn't in the room, and like I was in like slow motion, and it was all really weird. And my friends and family were just amazing at the time, and they sort of recommended that I went straight into counselling, which I did. And she kind of talked me through like why I was having panic attacks and all this kind of sense. And what I kind of realised is that I had for years and years and years been like drinking through my emotions. So when I actually had real emotions now, I wasn't really realising how to deal with them. And I'd had like 26 years of crap that I'd been pushing down. And I kind of just, it got to the point now where it was all coming out. So I kind of looked around on social media at the time and was like, why is no one talking about this? Like, why is no one talking about like how, you know, it actually alcohol and mental health are really, really linked, not just because alcohol is a depressant, but the fact that we use alcohol so readily to kind of change our emotional state that none of us are actually being able to deal with our emotions now, because as soon as we're stressed or anything like that, we just drink. So therefore we can't like when stressful situations come up, we can't deal with them.
Yeah.
So I kind of looked around and everyone was talking about like alcohol and physical health and diabetes and cancer, and I couldn't really find anything that was talking about mental health. And I found a lot of great communities that were kind of, you know, like AA recovery communities. I found like a lot of mums that were talking about kind of like mummy wine culture and, you know, mummy juice at play dates and things like that. And they were all really, really helpful. But I wanted something that was like young, millennial, talked about mental health, was like really honest, but at the same time, like still wanted to be really sociable. Like I was working in media at the time, so I was forever having to go to like fashion shows and press dinners, and I couldn't really just say, okay, I'm never going to go out again and just protect my sobriety. Like I wanted something that was like, no, you can be like social and you can be fun and you can talk about your mental health and you can do all this, and you're just taking alcohol out of the equation. So when I couldn't find it, I kind of decided to just set it up myself. And it really essentially just started as me doing like funny quotes and talking about alcohol and mental health. And I actually didn't put my face on it until I had, I think it was 10,000 followers.
Wow.
And then I was like, hi guys, just so you know, like I'm behind this account. And then I went to, I got asked by a girl called Kate who runs the Sober Millennials. She was tasked by Club Soda to put together a panel of young and sober people for the Mindful Drinking Festival last January. And she kind of messaged me and said, look, I've seen that, you know, you're young, you're sober, do you want to come be on this panel? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds really fun. So I like went on the panel and I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to talk to people about this. I want to like share my story. I want to like tell people, you know, you can stop drinking, you can still do all the things that you were doing before, but if not better. And it's kind of just developed from there, really. And then we started doing brunches and events and like getting people together. And I've started doing more panels and more podcasts and more talks and working with universities. And it's kind of escalated from there into like a million different branches, really, of stuff. But yeah, it's just growing constantly, which is so exciting.
Yeah, and I've seen that you're moving into almost activism kind of territory now. Is that right? Is that what you described?
Yeah, I think like with sobriety, it's just like ever changing and you're ever evolving. So like my first year was all about like making sober friends and getting people together. And now that kind of ball's rolling. I'm like, okay, well actually now I want to start making some changes, because I still see this constant, like everything around me is just alcohol. And I'm like, I want to change that. And I went to the university and I loved all the work I did with universities, and I thought, oh my God, I'd love to do like talks at universities, and I'd love to work on like alcohol marketing, and there's so many things. So I think for the kind of first year, it was very like social media, get the word out there about our events and meetups. And now this year I'm like, okay, well, we're in a good place with events and meetups. Now actually there's some real change making to be done and stuff that I want to do.
Yeah. And you are, from what I can see, you know, having an amazing positive impact, and, you know, something that, like I mentioned to you last week, that we're also working along the same vein with the workplaces. So to have like those two streams, like us going in the workplaces, you going into universities, and the older, I just think it'll be amazing.
Yeah, we're going to take over the world, girl.
Yeah. Sober world this time next year.
Mille, I wanted to ask you, because I know you've mentioned about the universities, and when I was younger, and because my whole social life was based around alcohol, and I'm ashamed to say this, I've got, I'm not ashamed to say that I've got a 21-year-old, that's fine, that's fine. What I am ashamed to say is, you know, when she was at school, when I spoke about university, I kind of encouraged the party life of it, and was like, oh, go to uni, it'll be brilliant, you'll be able to party all the time. As a parent, that's like, I'm really ashamed of myself. But, you know, alcohol and university life is it's strongly associated with alcohol.
Yeah, 100%.
So what would you say to people going to uni? Like, what do you do if you don't drink at uni? How do you make friends at uni without drinking? What would you say?
There's a few things. So some universities have actually got like alcohol-free halls of residence, which might feel a bit extreme, but if you are really uncomfortable being around people who drink, that's one avenue. a lot of universities now have started to have societies, like sober societies. So whereas you'll have like, you know, the Frisbee Society, the Dance Society and the Football Society, some of them have sober societies where you can meet people who don't drink, which is amazing. And then the other one is to kind of check out the offerings in like the bars around where you're going. So one of the great things with the like the work I did with Club Soda in the university, so we had like pop-up non-alcoholic bars in the halls of residence, and the best thing about this was people kind of came down, and you know there was like loads of free pizza, so I don't think they necessarily came down for the alcohol free, but they'd come over and they'd try it, and we'd say, oh, it's alcohol free, and they go, okay, and then they try it and they go, oh, actually this is really good, this alcohol free Budweiser or this alcohol free cider is actually really good. And then it kind of gives them the knowledge to know that if they were to go on a night out and they're actually feeling like they don't want to drink, they can go and grab one of these drinks in the bar. And a lot of them look so like the same now as the alcoholic drinks.
Yeah.
Have one without anyone even questioning it. Like if you go to the bar yourself and just buy an alcohol-free like Budweiser and ask them to put it in a glass, no one will ever know the difference. So I'd say like check out what's in your kind of like local bars, and if they don't have anything, try and push them to stock it. Like there should be, and this is some of the work that I want to do with like certain bars should have to provide it, like especially if they're in student areas, like a certain amount of non-alcoholic like choices.
Absolutely.
And that should, I know that that's a lot of work that Club Soda does as well, actually, is like really pushing venues to make sure that they've got a good offering. So I think they're kind of like three good tools, but just to know that you don't need alcohol to have fun, you don't need alcohol to make good connections. And I think it is changing. I think the ideas are changing, which is great, because a lot of the students I spoke to when I was down there were like, oh yeah, actually I don't really drink that much. And like I remember one lad, he came over and he was like really young, looked like a bit of Jack the Lad, and he was like, oh, are these alcohol free? And I thought, oh god, here we go. And he was like, oh yeah, I don't really drink alcohol because I'm on medication at the moment. And I was like, oh lovely, okay. Which is great. And like there's so many more now that just don't drink or have better attitudes to alcohol free drinks, which is great, because Club Soda kind of like stocked a lot of the fridges in the halls of residences, and they were like, oh yeah, we had some of those like alcohol free G&Ts, and actually they were really nice. So yeah, I think like know your options, know good places that you can go to, and yeah, just do your research, I think, before you go to the uni.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's amazing, Mille. Honestly, I really, really do think that the work you're doing and even just talking to people about it is just fantastic. I really do.
Oh, thank you. Oh, don't, I'll cry.
I don't know why I feel a bit emotional. But I do, I really do.
I think that you touch on quite a few good points there as well, particularly where young people are concerned. And I'm hoping you can answer this question for me now, which is slightly off topic. So a couple of people, when we've been out, we're getting around the sober socialising thing and we're talking about alcohol-free beers. But a lot of people are really concerned how they're going to loosen up in either social situations or in more personal situations like having sex or starting a relationship. So I'm not the person to talk about this because I've been comfortably married. I'm in a relationship for going on 10 years now. And when I stopped drinking, my husband did it to support me. So we kind of both did it together. There's been no awkwardness. Our social life has shifted. And similarly, I will be talking on your behalf. Sorry, Lisa, without saying, you know, Lisa's got her mum who's gone sober. She's got me who's gone sober. She runs the Be Sober Manchester group with 2 other people. So again, we've changed our social lives. But what about these people who are going out there? They're either trying to meet new friends or they're entering into new relationships. And rightly or wrongly, alcohol does loosen them up before they're engaging in their first time with somebody or something. What are you thinking?
Oh, there's loads of different ones actually. So, I could talk about this for ages. So, okay,
let's do it.
If we start with like dating, and then we can lead on to sex. So, dating, I always used to find, like, before you go on a date, you want to be as relaxed as possible. So rather than drinking, you need to find a new activity that relaxes you. So whether that's doing like an hour of yoga or like an hour of meditation or just something that chills you out before you go. And I also say, like, to be as relaxed as possible. For me, it was to already tell that person that I wasn't going to drink, because I know some people like to just announce it on the day, but for me, I wanted to go knowing that they knew I didn't drink and that they were okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I would hate to tell someone on a date and then the whole time be like, oh, do they think it's awkward? Oh, okay. Do they now not want to be on a date with me? Like, if I say, look, I don't drink, and they're like, do you know what? That's cool. That's fine. And then I can go on the date being as relaxed as possible, because I know that they know that I don't drink. So that would be the first one. And then obviously, like, if you're doing dating apps, things like Bumble and Tinder have, actually, I don't know if Tinder does, Bumble and Hinge definitely do, have those filters where you can say, like, if you drink or don't drink. Okay. So you can actually filter by people who don't drink. So if you just want to go on a date with a person who doesn't drink as well, you can do that. Or you can just set your own filter so that, you know, people know when they see your profile. So then you don't even have to bring it up at all. Although some people don't see it, and you do have to remind them. Find something that relaxes you. I always say, like, go really comfortable. Like, if I was going on dates and I was drinking, I probably would have worn like a really tiny skirt, like a really low cut top. And like now I just kind of like go like just comfortable and just like as me.
Do you think that's, sorry Millie, do you think that's because you're more comfortable now as you?
Yeah, maybe. I do think it is. I think becoming sober, I've become a really like take me or leave me attitude. Like, I've realised that, because you can't be anything else but you. Alcohol makes you something different, but when you're sober, you cannot be anything else but you. It's really hard and exhausting to try to pretend to be someone else.
Definitely.
So yeah, I just go in things that you feel comfortable in, because if you're going there and you're like, oh, I'm a bit worried, you know, my boob's going to pop out my dress, or like all those things that, you know, when you normally have a glass of wine, then you just stop worrying about those things. But if you're going to be worrying about those things all night, like, oh God, I'm really worried if I turn around, like I'll split my dress open, like just go in something that you're really, really comfortable and that you feel relaxed in. I'm not saying like go in your tracksuit bottoms, but like something you're going to be worried about all night is one thing that I always say. Sober sex is a hard one. I would say, like, since, I mean, I've happily
you were no pun intended there.
yeah. I actually met my boyfriend on Bumble back in January, so we've been together since then. But what I would say is that when I stopped drinking, one night stands did for me become more of a thing of the past. Which, because it is really hard to just get that kind of courage, and like even like kissing on first dates became quite difficult for me. But all I learned really is that if that person likes you, they will wait. And I'm not saying anything against sleeping with people on first dates. Like, everyone is welcome to do what they want to do, but I just didn't feel comfortable doing that until I felt like I'd known them a little bit longer, like without alcohol. And so that was kind of the only thing that really shifted for me. And then by the time that I would sleep with them, I'd become really comfortable with them. So the kind of nerves would have gone down a little bit. So I think that's the kind of like main thing that has changed is you just get to know them a little bit more before you get down to it, essentially.
And I think you're meant to feel them nerves a little bit. You know, I know myself, I don't even think I ever had sex sober for a very long time. Honestly, looking back, I started drinking at like 13 years old to kind of socialise. Yeah. So, you know, I really do think every sexual encounter that I had involved alcohol first.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, and so many people, that's sort of the problem really, is because we associate it so much with drinking that it's really hard to get our heads around the fact that it doesn't have to involve drinking.
Yeah, it's really sad, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And but when you look into it, there's so many benefits of having like sober sex. Like, Oh, I mean, I don't know how much detail you want me to go into.
But go for it, Millie. Go for it.
But like, it's easier to like self lubricate. Like your orgasms are shown to be stronger. Like there's a lot to show that, you know, there's less chance of you contracting an STI, and like there's so many benefits, and even just like physical injuries of like not falling off the bed and things like that, and just like, authentic connection and all those kind of things. Like when you really look down to it, you're like, the best sex is of course when you're sober and not when you're drinking, but we don't really realize that until we start doing it.
I completely agree. And you remember it.
Yeah, 100%. You wake up and you're like, okay, I know who this person is in my bed, so I remember them coming into my bed, so that's the best thing.
I think that's it. There's nothing worse, and I know that I can speak for Alex here because she might not be allowed to, but in the past,
it's like, oh no, what are you going to say?
Where you're like piecing things together, and you're like, did I do that?
Yeah.
And then you get flashbacks of things that you may have done that you might just not have done.
Yeah.
With that person, had you not been drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And that's what the thing is, like the lines become blurred, and like it's just really like it's quite difficult territory. And as well, like when I look back, I know certainly on some of the things I did, and I'm like, what, that was quite risky to put myself in that situation.
Oh gosh, yeah,
I'd agree with that. I think I've been in some rather risky situations, safety wise, generally.
Yeah.
And that has definitely gone since I stopped drinking. And also even better than that, and this is from, like I say, somebody who's married, and my husband is quite protective over me in a non-controlling way, but he likes to know I'm he is really happy now when I'm going out, because he knows if I say I'm going to come home, he knows I'm going to be able to tell him where I am. There has been many, many times where I've just completely gone black and he hasn't heard from me for hours, and all sorts has gone through his head. So I know that by giving up drinking, I've done my relationship a massive favour as well.
Yeah, 100%. Do you know, I have a similar thing actually with my mum. Despite the fact that I'm 28 years old, she always, she knew I was going out, would worry. And now, if I say I'm going out, she's like, okay, cool, have fun. Like, and I don't hear from her. But I used to get like 5 texts from her throughout the night, like, are you okay? You getting the last train home? Who are you with? Like, and she always says now, like, she doesn't worry about me at all. But she said she used to like feel sick, like sitting up at night, just waiting for me to come home.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, you know, bless her, because having a 21-year-old that's not yet taken on sobriety, Bethany, if you're listening to this, listen to all of it. It is really worrying, and it is. And you know, when you can see and as your mum would have seen how amazing you were, how confident and lovely you were, you know, I see it with my daughter, and I just think, oh, you don't need to drink to be all them things.
Yeah.
So yeah, good on you for looking out for your mum.
Oh yeah, bless her. She's very happy now. Although yeah, she moans about other things now.
We always do.
Yeah.
You know what, though, Millie? Before we go, because I can see that we're a little bit short of time. What would your top tip be for people, maybe, you know, of the younger generation that are thinking about stopping drinking?
I've probably got a couple actually. I would say test it for at least 90 days. Like dry January and sober October, I think are great. But I think if you really want to see good changes, I think carry it on for at least 90 days. Because, you know, like in January, no one's really going out anyway. It's not really the biggest sort of like push to see the benefits. Like carry on through Feb and March. That would be one. I'd say the biggest thing, and I always like, obviously, I think it would be amazing if everyone was sober. Like, if the world was sober, it would be amazing. But I appreciate that it's not for everyone. So my biggest thing, and especially to, like, young people who still want to drink, is to drink for the right reasons. I mean, I'm not saying there are right reasons to drink, but at least don't drink for the wrong reasons. So
yeah,
because you're, like, jealous, sad, like, unhappy, angry, like, all of those kind of negative emotions, like you shouldn't. And it's kind of more like the Ruby Warrington Sober Curious angle of like being really mindful of the situations that you're drinking. So like if you're in a bad place emotionally, or you're drinking because you're stressed, like that's not a good thing to do, because then you don't learn to sort of manage those emotions. You will only ever associate those negative emotions with having a drink. I would say only drink in situations, you know, where like, I don't know, you're making a toast, or like you're at a gig and you just think that maybe having one drink would add to the atmosphere. Like obviously I fully always promote sobriety, but if people are absolutely like, I'm never gonna just be teetotal, then that is my kind of go-to tip, is that don't drink for the wrong reasons.
Oh yeah, I agree. And I just want to say at this point, Millie, thank you so much, because you have shared a lot that really is outside of mine and Lisa's kind of, and I don't want to be ageist, but age bracket, or certainly life experience bracket, because we're at a slightly different older end. We're mums, we've got families and so on. It's just so lovely being able to talk to somebody, one who's been massively successful, and two who can influence all these young people in such a positive way. So thank you so
Oh no, thank you.
Thank you, Millie. It has been lovely. I've really, really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more as well. So yes, thank you. I'm just going to say now, let's have a look. We're going to be discussing next time on the next podcast. We're going to be talking about the alcohol industry. So yeah, I can't wait for that one, Alex. Can you?
I can't wait for that. Can't wait for a good old rant, Lisa.
I have been dying for a ranty one. So
oh my God, can I come back on that one as well?
Oh yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
See you later. Bye bye.